안녕하세요. 저는 3교실에 있는 사뮤엘 K. 킴이에요. 전 CPR은 한국 전쟁이에요. What was the Korean War? Why did it happen? The Korean War was a conflict between the Communist North Korea and Democratic South Korea with their respective supporters, the USSR and China for North, and the US and UN for South. Many believe that the Korean War was an extension of the Cold War between the USSR and the US due to the Communist and Democratic involvement. In the early 1900s, Korea was a very poor country under Japanese imperial rule. Many civilians lived in huts made of straw or dirt and had no way to fight the Japanese. In the 1940s, Japan, as a member of the Axis Party, lost World War II. Korea was then split up under the USSR and US control. The USSR got the North and the US got the South. However, the North was being influenced by the Soviets and eventually took a communist government and vice versa for the South. The first North Korean leader named Kim Il-sung called for a universal Korean election. He sent 3 North Korean diplomats to the South for talks. However, these diplomats were arrested later due to an unknown reason. The South Korean president Syngman Rhee somewhat jokingly claimed he could take over North Korea. Meanwhile, as agreed by the US and USSR, the US started to pull out all troops from South Korea. At this time, North Korea used the claim by Syngman Rhee as an excuse and began to invade South Korea. By September 1950, North Korea had advanced and surrounded the port city of Busan in the very southern tip of South Korea. In this time, the US had changed its international policy and sent in troops to support South Korea, along with UN troops. General Douglas MacArthur successfully landed an invasion in Incheon near Seoul and changed the momentum of the war. Shortly after this invasion, Joseph Stalin advises North Korea to retreat and defend Seoul. The Chinese commanders in charge of the North Korean army did not know about the number of troops they commanded and decided to stay and attempt to defend Incheon. 6 days later, the southern side reclaimed Seoul. By October 1st, 1950, the southern force advances past the 38th parallel and continues to pressure the enemy up to the Yalu River, the border between China and Korea. The Chinese start to gather their own forces in that border and counterattack the forces on October 25th. This produced substantial losses for the US. Normally, China was only giving strategic, supplies, and intel support to North Korea, but on October 5th, the Chinese had decided to take direct action, allowing the 25th event to occur. However, the USSR made it clear they would not act directly. With this new support, the North pushes the southern troops down to a few miles north of the 38th parallel. For 2 years, they fought with very little gain or advance. During the 2 years of fighting, peace talks occurred on and off. The final peace agreement, called the Armistice, was signed on July 27, 1953, almost 3 years after the start. On March 11, 2013, North Korea invalidated the peace agreement from 1953. On March 4, 2013, North Korea ratified the potential use of nuclear weapons against the United States. And on April 7, 2013, intelligence was received that North Korea was preparing 2 medium-ranged ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Thousands upon thousands of North Koreans rallied today around a North Korean general delivering that stunning threat. A first-strike nuclear attack with a vow to engulf Washington, D.C. in a sea of fire.
They're threatening a nuclear preemptive attack. Never done that before.
The young North Korean dictator, despite the diversion of Dennis Rodman's visit, now lashing out against the U.S. and South Korean military exercises and today's new stiff UN sanctions. Analysts say North Korea is still years away from perfecting a nuclear weapon, but they are getting closer all the time. The threat of a preemptive strike on the United States, even if that's not possible now, is terrifying.
You have to take this seriously.
North Korea does not yet have a missile capable of hitting the continental U.S., but America has satellites in space, radars at sea and on the ground, designed to detect a missile launch. Then dozens of intercepting missiles could be fired from California or Alaska to take out enemy missiles, even nuclear ones, before they reach America. But the system is far from foolproof. However, the most immediate threat tonight from North Korea is far more conventional. They could fire on South Korea, America's ally, like they've done before.
This is how wars start. Threats become maneuvers, become exchanges, are met with retaliation. Pretty soon you have World War I or Vietnam.
안녕하세요. CPR 하면서 많이 배웠어요. 한국 전쟁은 나라의 역사만 아니고 우리 가족 역사예요. 할아버지 두 분이 북한에서 한국 전쟁 때 남한으로 왔어요. 그래서 가족의 역사에 대해 알게 됐어요. 그래서 CPR는 좋았어요. 안녕히 계세요.